Tonight, on First at 9 this Sunday the 17th of August 2025. Cops and robbers. Police collaborating with international counterparts to nab Sri Lanka's criminal masterminds hiding abroad, reveals the IGP. Says there is no more political interference in police operations. Storm in the north. Lanka to launch a hartal tomorrow over the death of a 32-year-old in Mullaitivu. Army denies allegations of murder. Minister Nalinda Jayatissa cautions against politicizing the incident. Postal strike. Postal workers to go on strike island-wide from midnight. Government slams the strike action as unjust.
Asian Paint Causeway Aquasafe මිලදීගෙන LED TV run voucher ඇතුළු තවත් හැකි රසක් දිනා ගන්න.
This is Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to Derana First at 9. I'm Aditya Edrisinghe joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world. Brought to you by the only Sri Lankan media network to rise to the pinnacle across all media platforms. Recognized as the best by every survey and beloved by the people. Now on your top story tonight, Inspector General of Police Priyantha Veerasuriya says that an internationally sanctioned effort is underway to apprehend the criminal masterminds orchestrating Sri Lanka's underworld dealings from abroad. During his visit to Kandy today, the IGP asserts that there is no more political interference in police operations and added that police are now able to execute their duties properly without being pressured to commit any wrongdoings.
Inspector General of Police Priyantha Veerasuriya engaged in religious observances at the sacred temple of the Tooth Relic in Kandy this morning. Subsequently, he paid a visit to the chief prelate of the Malwathu chapter, the Most Venerable Tibbatawave Sri Sumangala Thera at the Malwathu temple. The IGP also called on the Deputy Chief Prelate of the chapter, the Most Venerable Dimul Kumure Sri Vimala Dhamma Thera. Subsequently, the IGP visited the Askari Mahavihara where he paid a courtesy call on the Chief Prelate of the Askari chapter, the Most Venerable Varakagoda Sri Gnanaratana Thera. IGP Veerasuriya also paid a visit to the Deputy Registrar of the chapter, Most Venerable Naram Panave Ananda Thera. Following his engagements, the IGP addressed the media.
Drug trafficking and gang violence did not begin yesterday. These crimes were perpetrated under political protection and in some cases with the support and protection of police officers. Military personnel were used to carry out these crimes, which are being orchestrated by a group of cowardly individuals hiding abroad. We have launched a program to combat these crimes with international collaboration. These criminals are already finding it difficult to base themselves at one location even while abroad, and it will become even more difficult in the future. There's no political interference anymore. The political environment which I have been provided with is very good. The only political intervention that is being made is to encourage us to do the right thing. My subordinates do not receive orders compelling them to commit wrongdoings either. Moreover, I will never order them to conceal, ignore, not to report or not to investigate any crime. If Sri Lanka police cannot work in this political environment, that is our own fault. There's a shortage of 30,000 officers. To address this, permission has been granted to recruit 5,000 officers this year and another 10,000 next year.
රුපියල් 8,900ක මාසික වාරිකයකට brand new TVS Excel 100 යතුරු පැදියක් ගන්න.
Now the Sri Lankan, well rather the Minister Dr. Nalinda Jayatissa advises the public to act wisely and refrain from participating in protest movements organized by various groups for political purposes. He made these remarks during a briefing at the Government Information Department concerning the Hartal planned for tomorrow, which is being held in response to a recent incident at the army camp in Muttiyankattu.
5 individuals were chased off by the army after attempting to enter the 12th Singha Regiment Battalion in Muttiyankattu, Mullaitivu around 11:30 p.m. on the 7th. The army claimed the group intended to steal iron and other raw materials from the camp, which was in the process of being evacuated. Tensions escalated after one of the individuals was reported missing by his relatives and was later found dead in the Muttiyankattu tank on the morning of the 9th. This incident sparked unrest in the area and raised serious concerns about the army's handling of the situation. Following an investigation, the Oddu Sudan police arrested 3 army personnel on charges of assault and aid in the attempted theft. In response, the Tamil National Alliance announced a hartal in the north and east to protest the incident.
ආමි කෑම්ප් එකට අවසර නොමැතිව
If someone enters an army camp illegally, they will be either be shot at or arrested and handed over to the police. Neither of these actions took place. It is therefore clear to us that something else has happened here. This is what happens when army camps are located in urban areas. Such camps must be removed. This will be our primary focus during tomorrow's Hartal. We urge everyone to participate in the Hartal during the morning hours.
උදේවරු මේක කරන්න කියලා අපි ඉල්ලා සිටිනවා.
හදිස්සි නීතිය රට තුළ පවතින අවස්ථාවක
During a state of emergency, organizing a Hartal might involve certain legal concerns. However, since there is currently no emergency law in effect, we want to remind the public that there is no legal obstacle to holding a Hartal.
නීති විරෝධී නොවන බව අපි මේ ආසාවෙද කියන
In this context, a press conference was held at the Government Information Department to address the incident and clarify the government's position.
මේ සිදුවීමේ කරුණු විකෘති කරගෙන
Certain political parties are attempting to distort the facts and provoke conflict in the northern and eastern provinces. The government has already intervened and a formal investigation is underway. I urge the people in the northern and eastern provinces to understand the facts clearly, avoiding falling into the false narratives being spread by minor political groups, and continue with your peaceful lives and businesses.
ඔබගේ සාමකාමී ජන ජීවිතය පවත්වාගෙන යන්න ඔබගේ ව්‍යාපාර කටයුතු කරගෙන යන්න
මේ වන විට යුද හමුදා නිලධාරීන්
We are continuing our investigation. So far, we have recorded statements from 13 army soldiers and 11 civilians. Based on statements from civilians, one soldier has been arrested on allegations of assault.
එක් හමුදා සැකකරුවත් හඳුන්වාගෙන තිනවා.
අනිත් දෙන්න ආධාරාධන බල දුන්නා කියන්නේ මොකද? ඒ දෙන්නට සම්බන්ධකමක් තියනවද මේ ඇතුල් වෙන්න උත්සාහ කරපු පස්තනත් එක්කලා?
යුද හමුදා සෙබළුන්ගේ
We have arrested those soldiers to determine whether there is any connection between them and the intruders.
සිදු කළා තියෙනවා.
Even we say that a theft occurred, why was the civilian taken inside the camp and assaulted instead of being handed over to the police? The second question is, if the soldier is suspecting it is a theft, why was only one civilian been killed, why others escaped? And it seems to be a little bit of differentiation.
First, I must tell that we have not invited anybody to come enter our camp officially. They have come with some connection, but we cannot accept that. If we invited, there is a system, but not in midnight. By 11:30, they have tried to enter the camp. So it is trying to unlawfully enter the camp.
Since it's a civilian, why was it not handed over to the police without being assaulted or abused or something like that? Because since he's a civilian.
As per my knowledge, there are no assault type situation happening. It is accused by the people. Now investigations are going on. Another thing, we captured only one person because other all ran away from the area. After that, we were not pursued them. Person who remained in the camp, we take him and we hand over to the parents. We didn't pursue the people who are out of the camp. And we are identified them also.
Then the murder has also occurred.
No, there were no murder. There were no murder cases. We are denied that.
හොඳම ෆෝන් එකක් ගන්න ළඟම අපාන්ස් එකට යන්න.
Now, the Sri Lankan Navy has been granted permission to carry out operational and financial activities under the supervision of the Ministry of Defence to store firearms and other equipment belonging to foreign private maritime security companies in the Navy's armories. The relevant gazette notification was issued by President Anurakumari Dissanayake recently.
Global shipping has long been marred by the threat of piracy, despite various international efforts to mitigate its proliferation. Although a plethora of options remain at the disposal of commercial vessels to ensure security, soliciting the services of organizations specializing in maritime security has been a widely sought after solution. Until 2009, the Sri Lanka Navy was tasked with storing and transporting firearms, ammunition, and other equipment belonging to foreign private maritime security companies deployed to guarantee the security of commercial seagoing vessels. The Navy also ensured that such foreign maritime security companies complied with Sri Lanka's security protocol. According to reports, the Navy generated around 180 million rupees per month by executing those tasks. However, by October of 2012, the then government stripped the Navy of these responsibilities and instead vested them with Lanka, a state-owned security company. Lanka, in turn, delegated these responsibilities to Avantgarde Private Limited, chaired by Nishanka Senadipati. Later on, allegations surfaced that the state lost 11.4 billion rupees through the granting of the relevant license to Avantgarde Private Limited. The then Secretary to the Ministry of Defence Gotabaya Rajapaksa and 7 other suspects were later formally charged by the Commission to investigate allegations of bribery or corruption. Police probes were also initiated at the time to determine the lawfulness of a completely private entity such as Avantgarde operating an armory. Off the back of these developments, former President Maithripala Sirisena stripped the license granted to Avantgarde, rendering it illegal for the company to continue operating the armory. Former President Sirisena did so by exercising the powers vested in him as the Commander-in-Chief of all armed forces. Later on in 2021, the Colombo High Court acquitted the former Secretary to the Ministry of Defence Gotabaya Rajapaksa and 7 other suspects of all charges filed by the prosecution over the Avantgarde controversy. The High Court of Colombo justified its decision by drawing attention to the complainant's failure to prove that the license granted to Avantgarde was fraudulent as alleged. Consequently, during former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa's term in office, the license granted to Rakna Lanka and Nishanka Senadipati's Avantgarde were reissued, allowing the company to resume its previous operations. Against this backdrop, on the 7th of July this year, the Cabinet of Ministers approved a proposal submitted by President Anura Dissanayake to once again vest these responsibilities with the Sri Lanka Navy. Cabinet approval so granted was followed by a Gazette notification issued by the President on the 13th of August. According to the Gazette, the Navy will be able to carry out the operational, administrative and financial activities under the supervision of Ministry of Defence to store firearms, ammunition and other equipment belonging to foreign private maritime security companies in the armories of the Navy. The Navy will also be tasked with transporting such firearms, ammunition and other equipment.
Employees of the Central Mail Exchange initiated a strike action from 4 p.m. this evening over 19 unfulfilled demands. The United Postal Trade Unions Front revealed that all post officers will adopt the strike action from midnight tonight. However, the Postmaster General Ruwan Satkumara and Minister of Health and Mass Media Dr. Nalindra Jayatissa assert that the strike is unjust given the recent increase in postal workers' salaries.
The Union of Post and Telecommunication Officers and the United Postal Trade Unions Front withdrew from service at the Central Mail Exchange in Colombo and initiated a strike action from 4 p.m. today over 19 unfulfilled demands.
2 of the demands included in our list of 19 concern overtime pay and the fingerprint attendance system. If overtime pay cannot be obtained after an employee scans their fingerprint after an overtime shift, it is the responsibility of the Postmaster General and the Ministry Secretary to devise a system to rectify this issue. The hourly overtime rate has also been reduced. We will continue this strike action until we receive satisfactory responses to our demands.
Against this backdrop, Postmaster General Ruwan Satkumara has cancelled all postal workers' leave.
Considering the recent increases in salaries and overtime allowances, I view this strike action as unjust because in reality we should be working even harder. A week ago we held a discussion with them and agreed on a course of action. However, they refused to honour the terms of that agreement. For example, all trade unions agreed to use the fingerprint attendance system at the Central Mail Exchange and administrative offices. Our end of the bargain was to prepare an acceptable mechanism regarding overtime pay. It is they who are breaching the agreement. We are ready for discussions at any time, even today. Overtime pay from this April is already being added to their basic salary for January 2027. In such a context, it is unjust for employees of a department for which the Treasury has already allocated 4 to 5 billion rupees to strike. As the Minister, I request all postal workers to understand the situation, report to work, give their maximum effort and make their department profitable.
Now, the funeral of former State Minister Lohan Ratwatte was held this afternoon at the Ratwatte Family Cemetery in Nittawela. Ratwatte, who had been battling illness for some time, passed away on the morning of August 15th while receiving treatment at a private hospital in Colombo. He was 57 years old at the time of his passing. His remains were brought to his residence in Kandy yesterday, where a large number of mourners, including prominent political figures, gathered to pay their final respects. The funeral ceremony took place this afternoon, attended by a large crowd marking the farewell of a long-serving political figure. Leader of the opposition and head of the Samagi Janabalawegaya, Sajith Premadasa, announced today that the SJB is prepared to offer free legal assistance to individuals who have fallen victim to the predatory practices of the online debt trap, which continues to worsen the plight of financially vulnerable families. The opposition made this statement during a meeting with the Rata Samaga Api Ekata, an organization representing those affected by the growing influence of the online loan mafia.
Minister Wasantha Samarasinghe was the first to be informed of this situation. Our initial discussions on this matter were with him. However, no action has been taken so far and we are deeply displeased by this inaction. These online companies are operational and more dangerous today.
The root cause of this issue is the very serious financial crisis looming over all households. Many groups, especially foreign ones, are leveraging these hardships and targeting individuals who are already struggling to make ends meet. These lenders shrewdly avoid revealing the interest rate at the outset. They charge the exorbitantly high interest rate later on through deceptive and manipulative methods. When debtors find themselves unable to pay off the debt, these lenders resort to character assassinations and threats. On certain occasions, they visit the workplaces of these debtors and create a commotion. They also misuse platforms like Facebook to spread misinformation and ruin the personal and family lives of the victims. Therefore, it is evident that the loan mafia is operating rather despicably at the moment. We have in our possession all the facts and figures pertaining to such companies. To address this issue, the Samagi Janabalawegaya will deploy its legal team. We will provide pro bono legal assistance to all victims of this online loan mafia. Through these efforts, we intend to teach these loan sharks a lesson on the repercussions of preying on the vulnerable.
Now, Sarva Janabalaya leader MP Dilith Jayavira claims that the Sarva Janabalaya will usher in a new era by 2029. According to Jayavira, that era will be one where the estate community will no longer suffer the injustices they once endured for generations.
The formation of the Sarvajana Sabha in the Rangala division within Kandy's Teldaniya electorate took place this afternoon in Rangala under the leadership of Sarvajana Balaya leader MP Dilith Jayavira. The required capital for the Sarvajana Sabha was provided by the Sarvajana Trust.
From the very beginning, there was one issue that Kopi and I discussed. That issue is the welfare of estate workers, which will be one of our top priorities. We envision a happy and prosperous nation, one where every individual has the opportunity to purchase a vehicle, own a home, and provide a quality education to their children. We will continue the Sarvajana Sabha initiative to foster an entrepreneurial and innovative mindset across the country. No matter who led you in the past, you are still living in the same lined rooms, earning the same wages and being ignored by those who once claimed to represent you, like Comrade MP Ambika, who now fears to even visit these places. How can we ever place our trust once more in the traditional political apparatus? Starting in 2029, we will usher in a new era. Within this new era, we promise that estate workers will no longer suffer the injustices they once endured for generations. We have a scientific and a creative plan. We are committed to launching it. Stay with us. We will never betray you. Have faith in us. And now here's a look into thoughts shared in the political arena today.
In the south, there is a criminal underworld which the Rajapaksas, Ranil and the Premadasas maintained. A similar underworld couldn't be established in the north because of the war. There were always clashes within this criminal underworld, but never to this extent because previously there were godfathers in charge of it. Ministers and MPs from both Mahinda Rajapaksas and Ranil Wickremesinghe's governments played this role. When there were disputes between rival gangs, these politicians would hold deliberations and reach equitable resolutions. There weren't clashes between criminals because it was the leaders of those parties who controlled them. They asked for an overwhelming victory and they received it. But now they are complaining. They told us not to complain, but now it is they who are complaining. You can win power by lying to the people, but people change once they realize they've been deceived. There is no word of the provincial council elections. Why? Because they lost hundreds of thousands of votes. The time of their decline has arrived. A political culture free of theft, corruption and waste has been created. We know it is unbearable for the opposition who were rejected by the people. That is why they are attempting to raise various objections. This no confidence motion is another such unsuccessful attempt. The opposition aren't even aware of who can be subjected to a no confidence motion. The argument that only cabinet ministers can be subjected to no confidence motions is one that is being presented without knowledge of tradition or the law. They are all members of the executive branch. The fact that a no confidence motion has not been filed against the Sri Lankan deputy minister previously is not a legal argument preventing one from being filed now. We accept that there are practical challenges with bringing a no confidence motion against the deputy minister. Even though he is only the deputy minister, he is the person who is fulfilling the majority of the responsibilities of the Minister of Defence as the expert in the subject. This is an oversight on our part. Moving forward, we will use an alternative method to hold him accountable. We are aware that this motion will not succeed.
Now, the Derana Colombo International Kite Festival officially began today ahead of its grand showcase on August 24th at the Golfers Green. As a prelude, 3 engaging kite-making workshops were held at the Mihilaka Hall BMICH, with children aged 8 to 12 taking part. The sessions were led by an expert Australian team, including world-renowned kite designer Michael Alvarez. 3 more workshops are scheduled for tomorrow, continuing the creative buzz ahead of the main event. Welcome back. Now in your business news, Sri Lanka's Minister of Labour and Deputy Minister of Economic Development, Professor Anil Jayantha Fernando, held high-level talks in Singapore to boost labour mobility, protect migrant workers and attract investments to support Sri Lanka's economic recovery. The visit from August 11th to 13th, 2025 centred around the Invest Sri Lanka Forum, where Minister Fernando met with Singaporean Ministers of State Dinesh Vasudash and Alvin Tan. Discussions focused on expanding job opportunities for Sri Lankans, strengthening skills training and ethical recruitment, and encouraging Singaporean investment in key sectors such as hospitality, healthcare and manufacturing. Minister Fernando also met with employment agencies to address migrant worker welfare and support services. He was accompanied by Central Bank Governor Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe and officials from the Sri Lanka High Commission. Now, trade talks between the United States and India have stalled after Washington cancelled a key visit to New Delhi. This comes just days before U.S. tariffs on Indian goods take effect on August 27th, amid escalating tensions over Russian oil imports and market access.
A scheduled visit by U.S. trade negotiators to New Delhi from August 25th to 29th has been cancelled, delaying progress on a proposed bilateral trade deal and dashing India's hopes for relief from new U.S. tariffs set to take effect on August 27th. The U.S. Embassy in New Delhi confirmed it has no further details, while India's Trade Ministry has not responded to inquiries. Talks are now expected to be rescheduled, though no date has yet been set. Tensions rose after US President Donald Trump imposed an additional 25% tariff on Indian goods, citing India's continued imports of Russian oil. The new duties will raise tariffs on some Indian exports to as high as 50%, among the steepest imposed on any US trade partner. Negotiations broke down after 5 rounds due to US demands for greater access to India's farm and dairy markets and a halt to Russian oil imports. India's foreign ministry has pushed back, arguing the country is being unfairly targeted, while the US and EU continue to trade with Russia.
Welcome back. Now in your world news, the controversial peace proposal that could end the war in Ukraine, which President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin discussed at the recent high-stakes summit in Alaska, reportedly features terms heavily favoring Moscow. The plan is said to involve land concessions by Kiev and the abandonment of its NATO aspirations, while offering potential sanctions relief for Russia. Against this backdrop, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is set to meet Trump tomorrow at the White House, where he will be joined by European and NATO leaders.
At last Friday's historic summit in Alaska, Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin discussed a controversial peace plan that would see Ukraine cede large parts of its eastern territory in exchange for a Russian troop freeze elsewhere. Sources familiar with the talks say Russia offered to withdraw from small areas in northern Ukraine while demanding Kiev pull out of the Donetsk and Luhansk regions it has not fully captured. The plan reportedly includes Ukraine giving up its NATO ambitions, recognizing Russian control over Crimea, lifting some sanctions and granting official status to the Russian language and Orthodox Church. Moscow also insists there be no ceasefire until a full agreement is reached, contrary to Ukraine's demands. Trump claimed he and Putin had largely agreed on a deal but emphasized Ukraine must sign off. President Zelensky is expected in Washington tomorrow to discuss the proposal. European and NATO leaders including Ursula von der Leyen, Emmanuel Macron, Friedrich Merz and Mark Rutte will join President Zelensky at Monday's White House meeting with President Trump. Their united presence underscores Europe's support for Ukraine and aims to ensure Zelensky is not pressured into accepting a controversial peace deal with Russia. For now, key terms remain unclear and Ukraine's government has strongly rejected any land concessions.
Now, Israel is preparing a renewed offensive in Gaza City, calling it Hamas's last stronghold, and plans to evacuate civilians ahead of the assault. Starting today, tents and shelter supplies will be delivered to Gaza through the Kerem Shalom crossing to be distributed by the UN. While Israel says it aims to move civilians to safer zones, the United Nations warns the relocation could worsen Gaza's deepening humanitarian crisis.
The Israeli military announced that starting today, tents and other shelter equipment will be delivered to Gaza residents ahead of a planned evacuation from combat zones in Gaza City. The move comes as Israel prepares a renewed offensive to retake control of the northern part of the enclave, drawing international concern over the safety of the 2.2 million civilians living in devastated conditions. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has called Gaza City Hamas's last stronghold and vowed to evacuate civilians to safe zones before launching a new assault. The shelter aid to be inspected by Israeli defense personnel will enter via the Kerem Shalom crossing and be distributed by the UN and other humanitarian groups. While the United Nations welcomed Israel's decision to allow shelter supplies in, it warned that relocating civilians to southern Gaza, which is already overcrowded and unsafe, would worsen the humanitarian crisis. The IDF did not clarify whether the shelter is for all of Gaza City's estimated 1 million residents or if the relocation zone will be near Rafah on the Egyptian border. Meanwhile, Israeli forces have intensified operations in Gaza City's Zaytun and Jajaya neighborhoods, with heavy aerial and tank shelling reported. The IDF said it is targeting tunnels, explosives and militants in the area. The war sparked by Hamas's October 7th attack on southern Israel that killed 1,200 people has left more than 61,000 Palestinians dead, according to Gaza's health ministry. Ceasefire talks remain stalled despite efforts by Egypt, Qatar and the US to revive negotiations. Amid the deepening conflict, families of Israeli hostages held in Gaza have called for a nationwide day of stoppage today. They are demanding immediate action from the Israeli government to secure the release of the approximately 50 remaining hostages, only 20 of whom are believed to still be alive.
That's all for tonight from First at 9. For the latest developments around the clock, stay in touch with Ada Derana, the Sri Lankan news brand of international excellence. Thank you for joining. Have a great night.
For news and information you can trust 24 hours a day, visit adaderana.lk.